Hello and welcome to the Week in Review for the week ending August 23rd, 2012. I'm Veena Bharath, inviting you to spend the next half hour with me as we take an in-depth look at the stories that impact our daily lives. In this week's program, His Excellency President George Maxwell Richards urges members of the Defense Force to play their part in taking Trinidad and Tobago forward. Parliamentarians celebrated the 50th anniversary of Independence Bowl. And Morval Laventille youths enjoy a 5-week musical camp where they learn to play a number of musical instruments. The Week in Review begins now. Let's take a look.
There has been, over the intervening years, what may be described as a tsunami of crime, for example, and multiple murders in one day has become a feature of everyday life. This is unacceptable. Some may say that this is a matter for the police and has no place at this afternoon's parade. But I differ. I locate this circumstance in the context of joint Army-police patrols, which is a feature of our security system, so that we can get a proper perspective of the role, the proper role that the Defense Force must increasingly play in protecting the nation's sovereignty, which some assume is for sale. Far from it.
His Excellency Professor George Maxwell Richards addressing members of the Defense Force at the Commander-in-Chief Parade. Professor Richards says the Defense Force must consider a review of role and strategy if it is to keep in step with what needs to be done to achieve the massive turnaround which he says is necessary in Trinidad and Tobago.
If a change was ever needed, it is now. But first of all, we must be sure that all members of the force, at whatever level and in every cohort, have the same objective and are totally committed. In this regard, our recruitment policy is critical, and periodic review within the military and civilian personnel attached must be sustained and consistent.
The President is suggesting that each individual be self-motivated if he or she is to contribute to the fulfillment of the mission that has been established for members of the Defense Force, where self-seeking, he says, should not be an option. He adds that members of the Defense Force should be adequately trained and well learned in certain areas in order to effectively function in their capacity.
I would like to see the training of our men and women taken to another and higher level, one in which fluency in languages beyond our region is par for the course. I exhort you to become more familiar with the classics of your profession, including outstanding personalities, understanding more deeply its history and the standards that have been set, so that you may make proper, relevant application of the sound principles that never change, even as you acknowledge the legitimate moral requirements of the present.
Prime Minister, the Honourable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, stole the show at the ball not only with her stunning gown, but with her words of praise for former Prime Ministers and parliamentarians. Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar says the nation is lucky to have had unique and inspiring personalities as Prime Ministers. She commends all of their contributions and says they all served the country well as heads of government, executing their roles to the best of their ability. Mrs. Persad-Bissessar says from the days of Eric Williams to now, the nation has seen a lot and should celebrate all that we have been through and are yet still to experience.
I am sure that you all agree we have come a great distance in 50 years. Through adversity and high points, through defeats and victories, and through sadness and happiness, our Parliament, our government, and our people now signal that our nation has stood the test of time. This is a time for us to pay tribute to our history, to give thanks for where we are, and to share in our very profound hopes for a future of continued peace, stability, and prosperity.
The Prime Minister took the time to remind parliamentarians that they should always be conscious of the importance of their role. She insists that it's a serious responsibility with serious implications in the upholding of freedom and democracy.
As we commemorate the resilience and the strength of our parliamentary democracy this evening, and as we recall the past struggles and share our hopes for the future, let us all keep central in our minds the very serious responsibility placed on all of us. History has shown that our parliamentary democracy can be only as strong as the vigor with which we defend and uphold its very proud traditions. In just moments, such time-honored traditions can disappear if we fail in our duty to uphold, protect, and defend the principles and practice of freedom, democracy, and justice.
Trinidad and Tobago can therefore learn much from India as it seeks to become the location of choice in the region for right sourcing financial services operations, the vision of the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center.
Planning Minister Senator Dr. Bo Tiwari says Trinidad and Tobago's Indian ancestry can be deemed a national treasure. He was highlighting the great influence India has had on this country, stating that Trinidad and Tobago's Indian ancestry is of great value to its citizens.
This adaptation and integration of cultural practices has led to the development of a well-blended and distinctive national identity for Indians who are now citizens and contributors to the society that all religions and races in this country today proudly embrace, and which in turn has been influenced in our own national and Caribbean environment by the other cultures and races and religions around it.
Dr. Tiwari says this country and India share similarities in tradition, foods, clothing, and customs. He says Trinidad and Tobago can benefit from India in many areas, particularly technology, science, food and agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, light engineering, and plastics.
As one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the past decade, India has emerged as a global player with the world's fourth largest economy in purchasing power parity terms, and as one of the most attractive destinations globally for investments as well as business. Not only is it an emerging economic power, as a member of the BRICS, it has also experienced accelerated progress towards the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and that's another way of judging the progress. To have such strong historical ties with a country such as India, as Trinidad and Tobago has had, and a country which has had such exemplary success on the global stage, is a matter of great pride and inspiration to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Likewise, he says Trinidad and Tobago has much to offer India, including energy, which will be needed for the country's growing population.
Despite our small size, Trinidad and Tobago has much to offer India as well. India's growing population and industrial demands mean that India needs an assured and reliable energy supply. You may have read recently of the blackouts. And Trinidad and Tobago is well placed to meet at least some of India's energy needs. In addition, Trinidad and Tobago is a gateway to the Americas, as the principal was mentioning, of over 600 million people.
Meanwhile, His Excellency Shri Malay Mishra says the impact India has had on Trinidad and Tobago goes far beyond being just a cultural one.
India's contribution to Trinidad and Tobago is not cultural, goes far above being cultural. It is civilizational. Because when India came here, when the ancestors of the present day Trinidad and Tobago people came here, they brought with them the ethos of an entire civilization. And whatever you see today in the society of Trinidad and Tobago have civilizational values. And that is a very important point I am making here, because these values have stood the test of time. They have strengthened the society of Trinidad and Tobago. They have made the society of Trinidad and Tobago stable, absolutely balanced, and this is, I think, the eminent strength of the society of Trinidad and Tobago.
Lalonde Gordon's double bronze medal haul at the London 2012 Olympics was a tremendous feat for the man from Lowlands and Tobago. Just how tremendous was outlined by the Honourable Anil Roberts, Minister of Sport.
Each and every one of our Olympic qualifiers did Trinidad and Tobago proud. Each and every one of them is deserving of accolades and praise. But in this world of elite sport, praise increases with the ability and the performance of the athletes who inspire. Whether it is praise and thank yous, whether it is endorsements, it's based on high performance, and we must respect the elite performance. We had the #1 performer, Keshawn Walcott, and we have the #2 performer of all time, 2 bronze medals, first Tobagonian individual athlete to win an Olympic medal, to get 2 bronze medals in one of the greatest stylish technical manners possible, Mr. Lalonde Gordon. Give him a round of applause.
According to the minister, the work is not over for him or others in sport.
But understand, we have a lot of work to do. As Minister of Sport, I will not shirk my responsibility. We have a lot of infrastructure to put in place, a lot of investment into the athletes, into the coaching, into the development, into the science, into the massage therapy, into the sports science center. I will do that. I have no fear. We will fight for resources within the cabinet and the budget, and that will be done. So I accept my responsibility. The associations, the sporting organizations have their responsibility to act fairly and equitably, to promote all, to recommend and move forward in a way that will promote advanced performance, elite performance, and sport for all across Trinidad and Tobago, to increase the critical mass so that we can have a team in 2016 of 70 or 80 athletes.
The Olympics also answered some questions regarding the national under-23 football team.
I had to count on my media colleague and former coach Colin Murray to remind me and spare a moment for Angus Eve and the under-23 football team. Remember, they were playing so well, and then we were shocked that they went to the qualification and were throttled by Mexico 7-1, and we couldn't explain what happened. Well, now we know what happened. Mexico was not just a CONCACAF champion. Mexico was the best under-23 team in the world and won the gold medal. So they, and Honduras, who also qualified, eliminating Trinidad and Tobago, were quarter finalists, equivalent of Korea and Great Britain and Brazil and Mexico. Honduras also made it to the last 8. So when you realize that we were knocked out, we were not knocked out in a CONCACAF setting. We were knocked out in a world-class setting. So give a round of applause to our under-23 footballers and Angus Eve and Mr. Wallace, the manager.
The minister indicated that he continues to be a member of the media despite his responsibilities to the government, and he had some advice for his media colleagues.
We have to educate ourselves, my brothers and sisters, please. You have the awesome responsibility of fueling the perception of the nation. When there's one day to go in the Olympics, and there's a Guardian editorial that's saying we are accustomed to higher performance and this performance is not good. When there's an Express article headline that says Seymour Hackett fails to impress after making a 200-meter final, the first time in history, breaking a national record and making it in a race that was the fastest in the history of the Olympic movement, I cannot see how that headline comes. When I come back home and I hear that Jazane Phillips, it was a melancholy Monday and he failed, and media asking him what went wrong. When nothing went wrong, he rode the best of his ability. He did everything right. He was fantastic. He moved from 10th in the flying 200 to come 4th overall, which meant that his tactics, his technique, his physical and mental ability to race one-on-one was unsurpassed. He just was not as fast as the other three.
Good advice for all.
San Fernando Mayor, His Worship Dr. Navi Murad Ali, says he is committed to ensuring that the boardwalk project planned for the San Fernando waterfront will begin within the next 4 months. He disclosed this as he held a workshop at San Fernando City Hall to discuss the boardwalk, which is just part of the proposed San Fernando waterfront development project. Dr. Murad Ali says the workshop should ensure that the public is briefed on plans surrounding the project.
I have made a commitment that the boardwalk project will commence before the end of this year. And in saying that, I decided that I needed to ensure that members of the public were briefed on what we intend to do and also to share our vision. This is a shared vision in moving forward with the boardwalk project.
Persons were given the opportunity to express what elements they would like to see on the boardwalk and also what can be done in the immediate future to beautify the waterfront. Out of the discussions, the City Council will then decide the way forward for the boardwalk and the entire San Fernando waterfront development project. Meanwhile, in the wake of the Diego Martin floods, Dr. Murad Ali also gives his commitment that all is being done to ensure the city of San Fernando does not meet the same fate in the event of heavy rains. His Worship says if disaster does strike, though, the San Fernando Disaster Management Unit has ensured the city is ready to face it.
We are also working in conjunction with URP and CPEP to try to clear all of the water courses. You have seen that there's been an exercise in San Fernando where we've been trying to get rid of the overgrown vacant lots by asking the owners to take responsibility. That has been a very successful initiative, and we are also working with all of the other stakeholders to get the city clean. Now, we have the San Fernando Disaster Management Unit. They have been doing tremendous work in coming up with plans and programs in case of a flooding or a disaster in the city of San Fernando. They have stockpiled the 2 containers in Skinner Park with emergency supplies, and we have been working with the ODPM in that regard. But San Fernando is prepared for a disaster.
Listening to these budding musicians here, one would not think that they learned how to play in just under 5 weeks. They are the products of the Positive Adolescent Network Camp, a joint initiative put on by the National Security Ministry and BP Renegades, which aims at fostering community life and educating youths. Youngsters from Morval, Laventille and environs participated in the camp were privy to not only learn how to play musical instruments, but how to read and write music. Administrator for the project, Helen Adams, says the program saw all participants learn to play the national instrument, the steel pan.
Sessions were scheduled so that each student gained hands-on experience with each instrument. Thereafter, they were given the opportunity to select their instrument of choice. Theory and sight reading were a focal point in this camp. Also, all students had to play the steel pan. There were a number of students who came into this camp with no music background, and we are pleased to say that the objective of this program was met, And this is evident by our presentation today.
Project manager for the program and representative from the National Security Ministry, Beverly Chase, says the ministry was proud to be part of such an initiative as it kept true community life alive.
The Ministry of National Security saw this fit to be something that could really and truly instill within the young persons a certain type of discipline and character that could deter them from actually doing things that were wrong. And you know, we do have a lot of problems in this society today. And what better way than to partner with the community? Because as we always say, this program is not about the Ministry of National Security, really. It's about the community. And it's supposed to be owned by the community. It is owned by renegades. It is owned by the parents. It is owned by each and every member of the community.
Ms. Chase, in relating messages from Line Minister Jack Warner, sought to highlight the importance such programs had in reducing crime at the community level.
Some persons have wondered whether the program will continue, and I have to tell you that it is up to the community for this program to continue. You have to be the inspiration for this program to continue, and I'm sure that what you saw here today would more or less inspire you for this program to continue. We have seen children as small as 4 years old coming into this program, and you see what can be done. And we have to ensure that it continues as a community, as a people, and as a government throughout. The crime problem is not a government problem, but is the entire nation's problem. And something like this, with all of us putting our hands together, will really and truly encourage the young person to keep on that right path.
The proud Little Tykes received certificates showing what they had learned over their vacation period. President of BP Renegades, Michael Marcano, says it's the aim of the band to establish more permanent structures for the teaching of music literacy in not only steel pan but various instruments.
Taking our talent and making a career out of it for some of our young people. So we were talking about creating young musicians. So in order to do that, we thought that we had to do it the right way, so that we made music literacy part of our junior band project. And then as time went along, we decided that we wanted to take it one step further and to create a music academy so that we can teach our young people not just to play pan, not just to read and write music, but also to play various instruments. However, playing the pan was compulsory. You had to learn to play the pan.
And I don't know what makes she get so wild. I don't know. Every single day.
And that's a look at GISL's Week in Review. Here's a reminder that you can view segments of this program on our website at news.gov.tt. I'm Veena Bharat. Do have a great week.